Venetian stucco. Magnat style Venetian stucco is a decorative effect available in a wide variety of colors. When applied in the right way, it perfectly imitates marble slab textures of 3 different finish types: satin, gloss and high gloss. The perfectly smooth surface of the Venetian stucco reflects light, gives an impression of texture depth, and creates an effect of blending color hues, thus being a very impressive decoration of indoor walls and architectural items. Application of the coating requires the following products and tools: acrylic primer, a primer for optimum substrate preparation; Venetian stucco, a thin layer acrylic textured paint with a polished marble finish; coloring pigment, a concentrated pigment for coloring Magnat style products; impregnating and protective wax, a protective compound for the Venetian stucco surface which produces coats resistant to scrubbing and water washing and highlights colors; a steel float. Substrate preparation. Before starting work, examine the surface and prepare it in accordance with good workmanship practices. Fill, sand and remove dust from uneven surfaces. Next, apply Magnat style acrylic primer with a roller. Being rich in acrylic resin, the paint optimally prepares the substrate, reinforcing it and leveling out its absorbing power. Apply the primer in light and even strokes. Leave no streaks. The recommended drying time of the primer is about 6 hours. Venetian stucco coloring. Depending on the selected color, add enough coloring pigment to the Venetian stucco. Use a power stirring tool to thoroughly mix both products until the color is uniform. When several containers of the same product are to be uniformly colored, it's advisable to color them together in one larger container. Applying the first layer. Apply 2 or 3 layers of Magnat style Venetian stucco with a special stainless steel float. The tools used for the application must be clean and free of scratches. The first coat forms the background. Put a relatively large portion of the colored product on the float and spread it evenly across the wall in long strokes. Next, gently smooth the coat and leave it for about 12 hours to dry. After that time, you may sand down small irregularities with fine sandpaper if necessary. When applying the product to surfaces with inner corners, first coat one entire plane, leave to dry and only then proceed with the neighboring one. This will facilitate corner coating with a better looking finish. Use the same technique when applying the stucco to surfaces with outer corners. Apply the stucco on one plane with small excess of the product at the corner. When the coat has slightly dried, remove the excess and apply the stucco on the neighboring surface, similarly leaving an excess of the product at the corner's edge. When the coat has slightly dried, remove the excess and leave to dry. Finish the dry edge with P400 or P500 sandpaper, remove dust and grind down the whole edge with the Venetian float. Applying the second layer. The technique of applying the second layer of the Venetian stucco is important as it influences the final visual effect. Put a small portion of the product on the float and spread it over the surface. Remove an excess of the product with a float edge after each pass. This will produce a smooth coat with a slight shine. Do not bring the coat to excessive shine though. Apply the layer to surfaces with inner corners separately, that is, leaving the stucco to dry before moving to the neighboring plane. In case of outer corners, apply the second layer carefully near the edges, immediately removing the excess and smoothing the coat along the edges with the float. Depending on your skill level, you can apply the compound from the edge's end. Whatever the technique, the process should result in an even, slightly rounded outer corner. Leave the Venetian stucco coat for about 4 to 6 hours to dry, depending on the ambient temperature. Applying the third layer and polishing. Once the coat has dried, apply the final third layer of the Venetian stucco. Use the previous technique to apply the product in small patches, always removing an excess of the material. Having coated about 1 square meter, polish it with the clean edge of the float. Do this in very light passes. Excessive pressure on the tool may hit it from friction and result in coat swelling. Continue in the same way to coat the remaining patches of the wall. Apply the stucco on inner and outer corners like you did with the second layer. Leave the polished coat for about 2 hours to dry. Next, polish the surface again to deepen the gloss. This time, the float can be pressed more firmly. Waxing. Apply MAGNAT STYLE impregnating and protective wax on the whole surface to improve resistance to wet cleaning and enhance the shine. The product highlights the color and facilitates the maintenance of the Venetian stucco surface in the future. Put a small amount of the wax on the float and spread it in a thin film over about 2 square meters at a time, removing the excess wax. After 5 minutes of the pre-drying of the wax, use a soft cloth, a float, or an eccentric machine to polish the surface.